Hello humans, it is coming at you with an exercise in which we're going to be dealing with two really big ideas, two words I really want you to understand during this unit, and that is symmetry, which is things look the same on one side as they do in the other. Thinking about kind of mirror images, and the idea of negative space, which is the places in a drawing or a work of art that there is no marks, the blank parts of the page. That is negative space. And right now, what we're going to be doing is really thinking about the idea of symmetry first, and thinking about negative space kind of second. But for these works of art we're going to be making, the negative spaces is just as important as the idea of symmetry as we build these. So we're going to be drawing right now, just kind of from our heads and our imagination, any animal you want, or really anything basically with a face that you want. Insect is fine, mammal is fine, human if you want to try. Is totally fine for this. Really anything with a face. I'm going to go with one of my very favorite animals. I'm going to go with a tiger. I got that image in my head. And we're thinking about these animals right now, thinking of them looking directly at us. There's a line straight down that goes right through their nose. And there's an eye, and they're in the exact same place, and they're looking right in the face. For these, for now, you don't want to start working huge. You want this to probably be about as big as your palm, or maybe a little bit bigger than that. But you don't want this to take up the whole page. We're going to work on getting these bigger, but for now, think about working on these as a small thing. And again, our big goal right now is the idea of symmetry, and this is kind of a trick to kind of get that idea of these really complicated line design drawings that we're going to be doing for this. Is to start right there in the middle. Put a little dot there in the middle of your page, and this is going to be the center point really for all of our designs. And so we're going to be drawing. I'm going to be drawing a face of my tiger here. So I'm going to think of where the center of a tiger's face is for the most part. Thinking about my imagination for him. I think that would be basically kind of right above his little tiger nose. So I think that's going to be where I start. First thing I'm going to do is going to build his nose, and I think it might be somewhere right below here. And I'm going to not be super worried about making this look realistic. Really, I'm thinking about shapes that will look interesting with these really complicated line design drawings that we want to do for this. So I'm going to kind of think about his nose as maybe like a little L type shape. And I kind of want to maybe make that kind of a thick black line. Then I'm going to draw that imaginary line that goes straight down the page. End it right there. Then I'm going to draw the exact same shape as best as I can this way and upward. And thinking about that mirror image. That looks pretty good. But as I look at it, because I really want, especially at the very, very beginning, I want it to look perfect. I want it to look perfectly symmetrical. So as I look at this, I notice I'm not really that perfectly symmetrical. This side sticks out substantially farther than this side. So what I can do is I can carefully build out this line to where it should go. And then I can just make this line a little bit thicker. And now I look at it again. This line obviously is thicker than this one now because I had to build it out. So now all I have to do is copy what I did to fix my mistake over here. And as I did this, I knew I was probably going to make a mistake. I didn't realize it was going to be right away. But that is probably a trick I'm going to use again and again as I build out this design. And it's not perfect still, and it doesn't matter if it's perfect. But basically, you want it to end at the same spots all along this, even with the geometric and with the organic shapes that we're going to be building with this. Okay, so I think that's where my tiger's nose is, where the center is going to be. I think I'm going to build upwards. There's no real wrong or right way to do this as you build up, but you want to, again, start from that middle, and you always want to kind of be building in a circle. So I definitely don't want to start building his mouth because I went below that center point. So now I think I want to start finding maybe where the bridge of his nose is would be right around here. I think I'm going to represent that with maybe some simple V shapes. Maybe it goes from here to around there. Then again, I want to mirror it on the other side. Have it go in the exact same way. I don't want it to be too thick because I'm thinking about like this is like the wrinkles of his nose. Then maybe there's another V shape that kind of goes up here. It's a little bit steeper to kind of illustrate maybe that it's kind of getting towards more like the bridge of his eyes. But again, it's not super important that the lines are like perfectly representing where the parts of his shapes are. It's more important kind of where they're ending, but even more important again is that they're the same on both sides. Because again, we're really working on that, thinking about symmetry. And the cool part is if you're really working on a symmetrical work of art, the coolness, the success of the art, it kind of just plays out itself, which is something that I think is kind of fun to watch. Right now, this doesn't look very good, but ultimately, I think this has potential to be a pretty good drawing. It's just we're just thinking about the kind of the start of it right now. So I think I want to build outward this way a little bit. So now I have a big old fat choice to make. Probably the hardest part of doing these symmetrical face drawing type things is to think about where the eyes are in reference to his face and get the eyes in the same stinking spot on both sides. And at the same exact height as well. But I already have some references to build on, right? I decided this is where the kind of the bottom of his bridge of his nose is going to be. I decided where this bridge for like this is where my design is going to start going off into his eyes here. So I feel like his eyes, I'm going to put a really faint dot here because I'm probably going to want to erase this. I feel like his eyes would maybe be there would be one of the centers of his eye, maybe around here. Again, making about the same distance from the V I already kind of carefully drew. We'll keep those there for now. We'll see where that's going to end up. So I have this design that's going out there, right? I already built it from the center, so I already have these references now that are built out from it. I can maybe play around with the design a little bit because these V's, they're great, whatever. Maybe I could make a cool design with them, but I don't love them totally. So I'm just going to erase a middle point there. Same thing on this side. And then maybe the same thing down here. I'm liking that dotted line design better. And you should do the same thing. You don't necessarily, like, if you copied me and drew these V's, you don't have to necessarily, like, delete little parts of it. Maybe you add little lines that go the other way. Again, the important thing is that you're doing the same thing on both sides. But you're welcome to copy along with me, but if you want to go on your own way, too, at any point in this, like, right now I'm really at the basic plates. I'm going to start going crazy with my design here. If you have any ideas that are different than me, man, go with those ideas. And honestly, if you want to be drawing a tiger, that's cool too, but you should be drawing or thinking about drawing a different animal. So I think that's, again, this is my bridge of my eyes are going to be somewhere around here. I figured out these little dots where I think I'm going to have those eyes in reference to it. I think I'm going to build out the bridge of his eyes here. And I'm going to abandon this idea of lines. And I think I'm going to represent these bridges by like maybe a repeating circle design. Getting kind of careful with these lines. Again, thinking about that curve kind of where like that tiger's brow is. Before I begin this side, again, I have that reference over here where the eye should be. So now I'm going to continue it to over here. So I'm going to be really careful to have it be the same length and follow that same curve. And I'm also going to be really careful to have it be the same number of circles. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now I want 6 that are going to go over this way. I'm going to put 1 here. 1, 2, 3, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I drew that thinking I would mess up, and yeah, I totally messed up. That's why I was drawn really faintly, which is something you should be doing too. Sorry I didn't remind you of that until now. If I didn't, I can't remember. But looking at that, I put those circles way too far apart. So I'm going to practice again. Yeah, much better. You know, a lot of this is trial and error and trying again, but I think that's pretty symmetrical, and that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pretty good. So now I have a better idea of where I think I should draw my tiger eyes and where, and like kind of what shape I want them to be. So I'm going to do that using, again, these references. I think those worked out pretty good for my center of my tiger eye. I think I'm going to make him kind of like a wild and crazy-eyed tiger, but also maybe like a little derpy. So I want to really kind of think about that shape, but I'm just going to simply draw the shape of his upper eye. I'm going to stop. I'm going to go over to the other side, and I'm going to try my best to draw this exact same line using those dots as a reference, only the mirror image of it. I'm going to start on this side. Find that curve, and again I'm drawing this faintly because there's a really good chance I'm going to mess this up. Then I have to start it over. That's always okay. Pretty similar. This is going to be a really good opportunity to use a trick to kind of fix this, because I look at them and they're not identical. This one is a little shorter than this one, and so I could choose to make it a little shorter or a little longer. I think I like the look of the longer eye over here a little better, so I'm going to grow out the eye that's a little shorter a little bit, just by illustrating it. It's a thicker line. Maybe this thicker line is going to be a good way to represent like kind of the illusion of a shadow on his eye. And then I'm going to kind of try to emulate again that same one, being a little bit more, like committing to it a little bit more. We're going to be pushing a little harder because I have the basic shape. But this time, instead of growing it out, I'm going to kind of grow it inward a little bit to shrink it down just a little to be the same shape as that one. Pretty good. Now I'm going to work on that bottom one. I think I want him, again, I want him to be kind of like wild and crazy-eyed. So I'm going to kind of grow this shape down. I'm going to start on this side this time. End it right there. Then again, I'm going to try to trace that same shape. Going small. Yeah, so there we go. So those are pretty good kind of guidelines as to where I want to put them. I think I'm going to keep those as solid lines. I could erase them, maybe represent them with like little circles or little plus signs or some other maybe intricate but simple design. But I like how these lines worked out, so I'm going to keep them. Again, not going to be perfect by any means, but it's going to be pretty close. Looking at that, I think this one sticks out a little farther, so I'm going to thicken this one a little bit more. Again, a lot of this is trial and error. But again, we're thinking about just boop, 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 same designs on the same designs, but mirror images on it, right? So these little stick out details, they're important to the viewer, that they're going to be basically in the same spots. So just pause for a second, double check my work, make sure that I think that things are basically proportioned, and I'm getting the basics of it down. Now I can start to maybe think about having a little bit more fun and adding some more intricate parts to the design. But I think I need to finish out where the basic end of my tiger's mouth is going to be. I think it's probably going to be somewhere down around this way. They don't have that really thick of mouths. I don't know. Maybe his bottom lip is going to be somewhere around here. Yeah, I think that looks good. A little kitty cat mouth. I think that I'm going to I'm going to kind of simplify his mouth. And again, I'm kind of going for a derpy look in this guy, kind of a little bit of a simplified look. And you can do really detailed stuff with this type of technique, or you can simplify stuff too. There really is no right answer as long as you kind of follow whatever style you choose. And again, thinking about that imaginary line that goes straight down the middle of my guy. I'm going to figure out where I think his little derpy mouth is going to end. I'm just going to represent, I think, that with like a simple curve. There's that line. You know, this is like a super simple little ridiculous line. But it's a big choice that I'm making with how I want the ultimate of design to this guy to be. So I'm going to be really careful that they're, you know, basically, I want it to look organic. I don't want it to look like a robot made it. But I do want it to basically be the exact same length and the exact same width and shape, etc., etc. There's his little frowny derpy mouth. That's where it's going to end. I think I'm going to end his chin with a simple shape that's going to end right at the end of his mouth. Kind of goes down. And I'm just going to have it be a pretty straight line. Even though this is a pretty straight line, I still really want to double check as I look at it. This looks a little longer than right there, which I don't want. I want it to look exactly the same. So I'm going to use that trick again. I'm going to thicken this line a little bit. And then I'm going to push this line inward and push this line out. This one I'm going to push the same way, just a tiny bit to get that shape. Again, pushing a little harder this time now because I have a gauge. I'm still being pretty careful. That's where the bottom of his mouth is going to be. I think I'm excited to draw his little fang, so I'm going to do that now. Drawing one line for it, going over here to the other side, mimicking that line, representing that with a simple triangle shape sticking out. It's looking a little scarier than I thought. That's awesome. Okay, so now I have the basic parts of his shape down, and now I can start to have fun, and I can start to play where I'm going to end his shape and use that negative space on the outside to kind of really define the shape of his whole kind of monstery, derpy looking little tiger face here. Oh geez, we're already at 17 minutes. I'm going to quickly draw out the rest of this guy without talking very much, just for time constraints, and then talk at you just a little teeny bit longer. So keep working alongside me with your guy, kind of get where I'm going with this. You know, start thinking about going in your own direction with the designs we're going to be building with this. But as we do this, remember, we're going to be having big open spots on this as part of the design. We really want to think about that negative space. But right now I'm going to stop talking so much, and I'm just going to quickly end this guy's design just to kind of show you exactly what I'm talking about. Right now I'm going to define the edges of his face, though. There. So I want to have 1, 2, 3 steps down. I want this line to be very similar to right over to there. And I want it to end basically in those same spots. Drawing softly because I know I'm going to mess up a little bit. It's pretty close. Line that line up a little. Push a little harder to get that line defined. Bam, there's the edge of my little tiger guy's face. Now I'm going to finish really quickly, maybe where the end of his head is. Again, going back and forth, making sure these lines are looking pretty similar. Getting there. End at that imaginary line in the middle. Okay, so now I can start really playing around with the design. But I've taken it this far. I have a feeling that this is going to take you humans a little bit of time. If I'm going to finish this on my own time for time constraints cases, but if you get to the point where you have a pretty fleshed out face with the eyes, the nose, and the mouth selected where you're going to have these on your symmetrical drawings, come up and talk with me, and I'll push you on to the next step of this. But I have a feeling this is going to take a second. See you in a second.